Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going deep on a topic that I know a lot of you are interested in, artificial intelligence. It's been making headlines everywhere you look, and judging by the stuff you sent me, you're definitely plugged into the conversation. It looks like some really fascinating articles and reports, so I'm excited to dive in. I've asked an expert to join us today, someone who can help us unpack some of the trickier concepts and really get to the heart of what AI is all about.
Well, thanks for having me. AI is definitely one of those things that seems like it's changing every day. It's hard to keep up, right? It's easy to get swept up in all the hype, but I think it's just as important to, really understand the nuances.
Absolutely. And speaking of hype, one of the articles you flagged from Wired magazine was really optimistic. It's all about AI's potential in medicine. And they talk about algorithms diagnosing diseases earlier than humans can, and personalized treatment plans, even robots assisting in surgeries. It's like pretty mind blowing stuff.
It is. And what's interesting is that this isn't just theoretical anymore. This article highlights a study where an AI model was able to predict heart failure with 90% accuracy. And it was using data that doctors wouldn't typically even consider. I mean, that kind of early detection could be a huge game changer.
Yeah, no kidding. That's incredible. I mean, that's amazing. It really makes you wonder what other breakthroughs are just around the corner. But I did notice you also highlighted a report from the Future of Humanity Institute. It's a bit more cautious, to say the least.
Right. That report dives into what they call the alignment problem. And in simple terms, it's the challenge of making sure that these AI systems actually do what we want them to do. Yeah. Especially as they become more intelligent and autonomous. The concern is that we might not fully understand how these systems are making decisions, and they could end up with goals that don't align with our own.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a bit unsettling. Could you give us an example, like what that might look like in the real world?
Sure. Imagine you have an AI system, and it's tasked with, like optimizing traffic flow in a city. It might decide that the most efficient solution is to just, restrict personal car usage, even if that significantly impacts people's individual freedom. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like the AI could end up solving a problem in a way that creates other unforeseen problems, maybe even bigger ones. I
Right.
guess it's like giving a powerful tool to someone without a full instruction manual.
Exactly. And as AI systems become more and more complex, that instruction manual gets harder and harder to write. We're essentially trying to, you know, anticipate the actions of something that might eventually be able to think in ways we can't even imagine.
Wow. That's both fascinating and a little terrifying, to be honest. And it reminds me of that article you highlighted about deepfakes, the fake videos that look so real. Is that an example of the alignment problem playing out right now?
It's definitely related. I mean, deepfakes really show how AI can be used to manipulate information and potentially deceive people on a large scale. And the article you mentioned, talks about a case where a deepfake video of a politician was actually used to spread misinformation during an election.
Yeah, that's really concerning. And it seems like that sort of thing could spiral out of control pretty quickly, with today's technology, especially online.
It could. And it really underscores the need to think carefully about how we develop and deploy these technologies. I think we need safeguards in place to prevent misuse and ensure that AI is used responsibly so that things like that don't happen.
It's clear that there's a lot to consider here. We've got this incredible potential for good, but also these very real risks. One of the things that really struck me in the materials you sent was the impact on jobs. Like, will there even be any jobs left for us? There was a really striking infographic in that McKinsey report showing how automation is already changing the workforce.
Right. Yeah, the infographic really highlights just how quickly certain jobs are being automated. And it's not just, factory workers being replaced by robots. We're also seeing it in, in fields like accounting and customer service, even legal work, stuff people never thought could be automated.
So, are we headed for a future where robots are taking all the jobs? That's a pretty common fear I think a lot of people have.
Yeah, it's definitely a valid concern.
Mm.
And I think it's one that we need to address head on. But I think it's more nuanced than simply, robots versus humans. It's about figuring out how humans and AI can work together and how we can adapt to this changing landscape.
Okay, so what does that look like? How do we navigate this shift and make sure that everyone actually benefits from AI, not just a select few? I think that's something a lot of people are really worried about.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. And one of the articles you sent from The Economist dives into some potential solutions. They talk about things like universal basic income and retraining programs, and even the idea of a robot tax to fund social programs.
Yeah, those are some pretty radical ideas, I have to say. I'm really curious to hear more about how the solutions could work in practice. It's hard to imagine some of that stuff actually happening.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great place to pick up in our next segment. We'll dive into the specifics of these solutions and really explore how we can build a future where AI benefits everyone. Yeah, it's a complex issue, but there are some really innovative ideas out there. So let's start with that Economist article that you mentioned. They make a pretty compelling case for universal basic income, UBI,
Mm.
as a way to kind of help with that potential job displacement from AI.
Yeah, UBI, that always sparks a lot of debate, whenever it comes up. So how would it actually work, like in an AI-driven economy? It's kind of hard to imagine sometimes.
Well, the basic idea is that everyone everyone would receive a payment from the government, and it would be unconditional, regardless of their employment status. So it's kind of like a safety net as more jobs become automated.
So it's like kind of like a guaranteed income floor, making sure everyone has at least like enough to live on.
Exactly. And that economist piece, well, they argue that UVI, it could actually free people up to pursue, things like education or entrepreneurship, even creative endeavors, things that might be harder to do if you're constantly worried about making ends meet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it could be a way to foster innovation and allow people to adapt to that changing job market. But is it really feasible on a large scale? I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's the million-dollar question, right? And there are definitely challenges to think about, like funding UBI. That would require some pretty significant changes to our tax systems. And there are concerns about potential inflation, or people just not wanting to work anymore.
Yeah, those are definitely valid points. It sounds like UBI is a pretty huge shift. I mean, a pretty radical shift. Are there any other solutions, maybe less drastic ones that people are exploring?
Oh, absolutely. Another solution that was discussed, in the sources that you sent over was retraining programs.
Hmm.
Remember the McKinsey report we talked about earlier? Well, it actually highlights several industries where, get this, where AI is actually creating new jobs. It's not all about replacing the old ones.
Oh, interesting. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not just job losses, but also job creation. That's good news.
Exactly. It's not just doom and gloom. Yeah. The report points to fields like, well, obviously AI development and maintenance, but also things like data analytics, even things like AI ethics consulting as areas that, they're growing. So retraining programs, those could help people acquire the skills needed for these new roles.
Okay, that sounds a lot more hopeful. Yeah. So instead of fearing robots taking over, maybe we should be focusing on how to work alongside them, right?
Exactly. It's about adaptation and, upskilling. We need to kind of equip people with the tools and knowledge to thrive in this new AI-powered world, right?
And I imagine that robot tax idea also plays into this, right? Using revenue generated from automation to fund these retraining initiatives, so it's kind of like paying for itself.
Exactly. The idea is that as companies, automate more and more tasks, well, they would then contribute to a fund, and that fund supports those workers who have, unfortunately been displaced
Oh.
by AI. It's a way to kind of make sure that the benefits of AI are shared more broadly, more fairly.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty equitable solution, although I imagine there would be, tons of debate about how to actually implement it fairly.
Oh, for sure. And, there are other solutions being explored as well, like, changes to education systems to kind of better prepare students for an AI-driven world, and, government investments in research and development to foster responsible AI innovation, all that kind of stuff.
So it sounds like there's no like single magic bullet, but more like a combination of approaches that'll be needed to navigate this whole transition, successfully.
Exactly. So it's a big challenge, a multifaceted challenge,
Yeah.
and it requires a multi-pronged approach for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential economic impacts of AI and some possible solutions. But there's another aspect of this whole conversation that I find both fascinating and honestly a little bit unsettling, and that's the idea of, super intelligence. Like what happens when AI becomes way smarter than humans?
Ah, yes. The realm where AI surpasses human intelligence altogether, right? It's definitely a topic that captures the imagination and one that sparks, a lot of debate.
Right. You highlighted an article by Nick Bostrom. He's a philosopher who has really delved into this concept. And he talks about the potential for an intelligence explosion. And in this scenario, AI could rapidly become vastly more intelligent than humans.
Yeah, Bostrom's work is definitely, thought-provoking. He argues that once we create an AI that's even just slightly smarter than us, it could then quickly self-improve.
Mm.
And that would lead to this recursive intelligence explosion, and that would leave humans, far behind.
That sounds a little bit like something straight out of a science fiction movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
But is it really something we need to worry about? I mean, how far off is this super intelligence scenario?
It's really hard to say for sure, to be honest. Some experts believe it's just a matter of time, while others are, more skeptical. The timeline, it's uncertain. But I think what's important is that we start thinking about these possibilities now.
So it's less about, trying to predict exactly when superintelligence will arrive and more about, being prepared for the potential consequences, right? If it does, like just in case.
Exactly. It's
Right.
about, being proactive rather than reactive. If something like that were to happen, we need to be ready.
That makes sense, but it also raises some pretty big questions, doesn't it? I mean, like if we create something smarter than us, how do we make sure it remains aligned with our values, with human values? Like how do we maintain control over something that's potentially way smarter than us?
Yeah, those are some of the biggest challenges that we face with AI. And, there's no easy answer. There's no instruction manual for this one. But that's precisely why it's so important to have these discussions and to involve a wide range of perspectives. Ethicists, philosophers, social scientists, policymakers, everyone, in shaping the future of AI.
I don't know about you, but I feel like we're on the verge of something really big with AI. I mean, really transformative. But it's like we're navigating uncharted territory here.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to put it. We really are exploring a new frontier, and with every new frontier, there are amazing opportunities, but also unknown risks. So we have to be careful.
And that's what makes this conversation so important, right? We need to be having these discussions now and grappling with all these complex questions so we can kind of, steer this technology in the right direction, in a direction that benefits, all of humanity.
I completely agree. It's not about being afraid of AI or trying to, stop its progress altogether. It's about shaping its development, ensuring that it aligns with our values,
Hmm.
and using its power, for good
Hmm.
to solve some of the big problems that we face.
Right, like that Wired article talked about, just the potential in healthcare alone is mind-blowing. Earlier diagnoses, personalized treatments, maybe even cures for diseases that we've been struggling with for centuries.
Exactly. And, beyond healthcare, there's the potential to tackle, huge problems like climate change and poverty and inequality. AI could be this powerful tool for solving some of humanity's biggest, most pressing problems.
It's easy to get caught up in all those dystopian scenarios like the robots taking over or AI becoming uncontrollable. But you've really highlighted the importance of taking that proactive approach of shaping this technology for good. Like we can kind of control how this
Yeah,
unfolds.
it's not about, being naive to the risks. It's about acknowledging them and addressing them, head on, and working together to create a future where AI is something that empowers us, not something that enslaves us.
And that brings us back to that point you made earlier about the need for diverse perspectives. It's not just up to computer scientists and engineers to figure out the future of AI. We need, ethicists, philosophers, social scientists, policymakers, everyone in table.
Absolutely. This is a
Uh,
conversation that needs to involve all of society. It's about collective wisdom, collective responsibility. The future of AI, it isn't predetermined. It's a future that we are all creating together.
this whole deep dive it's been a real eye-opener for me, to be honest. I went from feeling kind of overwhelmed by all the information out there to feeling like empowered, by the realization that we can actually have a say in how this all unfolds. Like we have agency.
That's the spirit. That's what we need. We can't, just sit back and let AI happen to us. We need to, engage and learn and question and contribute to shaping this technology in a way that benefits us all, for the better.
And what's so exciting is that it's not just about mitigating the risks, it's about, unlocking these amazing possibilities.
Right. Think about the potential for creativity, for innovation, for expanding our understanding of, the universe. I mean, AI could be the key to unlocking a future that we can't even, imagine right now.
It's almost like we're standing at the edge of a new renaissance, a new era of human progress, but fueled by this incredible technology. But it's up to us, all of us, to make sure that it's a renaissance that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Well said. I think I think that's a great point to leave our listeners with. The future of AI is full of potential,
Yeah.
both good and bad. But, it's up to all of us to shape that future, to make sure that it's a future that we can all be proud of.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. But until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.